Do you truly believe that love is meant to drain the very soul from another human being? Have you ever wondered why the woman you claim to cherish begins to see you not as a man but as a burden she must carry? What if I told you that the very act of emotional dumping is not love, but the destroyer of all that is magnetic and powerful within you? I am Napoleon Hill, and I have spent my lifetime studying the minds of the most successful individuals who ever walked this earth. Through decades of research, through conversations with titans of industry and masters of human psychology, I have discovered truths that can transform not just your financial destiny, but the very core of your being as a man. Today I speak to you about a plague that is destroying the masculine spirit across our modern world. A plague so insidious that men mistake it for vulnerability, for openness, for love itself. But let me be crystal clear with you, my friend, she is not your therapist, and treating her as such is the fastest way to extinguish every spark of attraction she once held for you. Write "I will be better now" in the comments if you're ready to face this uncomfortable truth about yourself. Listen carefully, for what I am about to share with you will shake the very foundation of how you understand relationships, attraction, and what it truly means to be a man in this world. You see, in my years of studying the human mind, I have observed a pattern that repeats itself in the lives of unsuccessful men like the changing of seasons. They approach their romantic relationships not as equals bringing value to each other's lives, but as wounded children seeking a mother figure to heal their emotional wounds. This is not strength. This is not vulnerability. This is weakness masquerading as depth, and women can sense it from miles away like a predator sensing wounded prey. But the wounded one here is not the woman, it is you, and your neediness is the scent that repels rather than attracts. The conscious mind, as I have taught for decades, is the watchman at the gate of your subconscious. Yet most men allow their conscious minds to become poisoned with the belief that emotional dumping equals emotional intimacy. They confuse their partner's initial compassion with an invitation to unload every burden, every fear, every insecurity upon her shoulders. They mistake her nurturing nature for a professional obligation to fix their broken spirits. But here is what your conscious mind must understand. Attraction is not built on pity. Attraction is not sustained by being needed. Attraction thrives on being wanted by someone who is complete within themselves, someone who chooses you not because they need you to survive emotionally, but because you add extraordinary value to their already fulfilling existence. Time, my friend, is the great revealer of all truths, and time will show you that every relationship where a man treats his woman as his personal emotional dumping ground follows the same predictable pattern. In the beginning, she may offer comfort, advice, and endless patience. She may even feel important, needed, special because you have chosen her to bear witness to your struggles. But time reveals that what you have created is not a partnership, it is a prison. A prison where she becomes the warden of your emotions, responsible for managing not just her own inner world, but yours as well. Time shows her that she has not gained a lover, but adopted a full-grown child who expects her to solve problems he should be solving himself. And what does time reveal to you? That the very woman who once looked at you with desire now looks at you with exhaustion. The woman who once anticipated your calls now dreads them, knowing they will bring another avalanche of problems she is expected to help carry. The woman who once saw you as her hero now sees you as her burden. This is not the natural order of things, my friend. This is not how attraction works, not how respect is maintained, not how love grows stronger with each passing day. Let me tell you about a man named Marcus, a successful architect in his 30s who possessed everything the world told him should make him attractive to women. He had financial stability, good looks, an impressive career, and what he believed was emotional intelligence because he was willing to share his feelings. Yet every relationship followed the same devastating pattern. Marcus would meet a woman, let's call her Elena, and in the beginning, everything would seem perfect. Elena was drawn to his apparent depth, his willingness to be vulnerable, his openness about his struggles with anxiety, his difficult relationship with his father, his fears about his career, his insecurities about his worth. She felt special, chosen, trusted with his innermost thoughts. But as weeks turned to months, Marcus began to notice changes in Elena's behavior. She would take longer to respond to his texts, especially when those texts contained lengthy paragraphs about his latest emotional crisis. She would seem distracted when he called her after difficult days, seeking comfort and reassurance. The spark in her eyes when she looked at him began to dim, replaced by something that looked almost like resentment. Marcus couldn't understand it. Wasn't he doing everything right? Wasn't he being the emotionally available man that women claimed they wanted? Wasn't he being honest, open, real? What Marcus failed to understand is that Elena had not signed up to be his therapist. She had been attracted to a man, a whole, complete, self-sufficient man who had his emotional house in order. Instead, she found herself in relationship with someone who expected her to be responsible for his emotional well-being, someone who dumped his anxieties and fears on her like a garbage truck emptying its load. Elena began to feel not like Marcus's equal and partner, but like his emotional mother. And here is a truth that cuts deep. No woman can maintain romantic and sexual attraction to a man she must mother. The feminine energy that creates attraction requires masculine energy that is self-contained, self-directed, and emotionally sovereign. As I studied Marcus's situation, I recognized it as a perfect example of what I call the great masculine deception of our time. Men have been taught that emotional availability means emotional dependency. They have been convinced that sharing every fear, every doubt, every moment of weakness is what creates intimacy. But intimacy is not created by neediness. It is created by two complete individuals choosing to share their completeness with each other. The reality that Marcus discovered, and that every man must face, is that women are attracted to men who have their emotional lives handled. Not men who never feel emotions, not men who suppress everything, but men who feel deeply and process those emotions like mature adults rather than expecting their partners to do the emotional labor for them. Elena eventually ended things with Marcus, and like so many men in his position, he blamed her for being unable to handle a real man's emotions. He told himself she was shallow, that she couldn't appreciate his depth, that she was just like all the others who wanted him to be emotionally unavailable, but the truth was far more painful and far more empowering. Elena was not rejecting his emotions, she was rejecting his emotional immaturity. She was not unable to handle a real man's emotions, she was refusing to handle a grown man's emotions for him. This distinction, my friend, is everything. A real man feels his emotions fully, processes them effectively, and shares his inner world from a place of strength and choice, not from a place of neediness and emotional dumping. A real man understands that his emotional well-being is his responsibility, not his partner's job. The subconscious mind, as I have taught throughout my career, accepts whatever the conscious mind impresses upon it. If you consistently impress upon your subconscious mind the belief that your partner is responsible for managing your emotions, for solving your problems, for being your unpaid therapist, then your subconscious will guide you to behave in ways that drive that very partner away. Your subconscious mind will make you increasingly needy, increasingly dependent, increasingly unattractive because it is simply following the blueprint you have given it. But here is the magnificent truth. You can change that blueprint starting right now, in this very moment. The first step in this transformation requires brutal honesty with yourself. You must examine your behavior with the clear eyes of someone committed to growth, rather than the clouded vision of someone committed to being right. Ask yourself these questions, and answer them with complete honesty. Do you find yourself sharing every emotional struggle with your partner? Do you expect her to provide solutions to problems that are fundamentally yours to solve? Do you feel anxious or upset when she doesn't respond to your emotional needs with immediate attention and care? Do you find yourself feeling resentful when she has her own problems to deal with instead of focusing on yours? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you have been treating your partner as your therapist, and this must stop immediately if you want to preserve not just your relationship, but your dignity as a man. The second step is understanding what authentic emotional strength looks like. Authentic emotional strength is not the absence of difficult emotions. It is not pretending that you never feel fear, doubt, sadness, or uncertainty. Authentic emotional strength is feeling these emotions fully while maintaining your center, processing them effectively, and sharing them from a place of self-awareness rather than neediness. When a truly strong man faces a difficult situation, he doesn't immediately run to his partner seeking comfort and solutions. He sits with the discomfort, he processes the emotion, he takes whatever action is appropriate, and then, if he chooses, he shares his experience from a place of strength and completion rather than from a place of seeking rescue. Marcus learned this lesson, but it took losing Elena and several other women before he was willing to face the truth about his behavior. The transformation began when he stopped asking, "Why don't women appreciate my emotional openness?" and started asking, "How can I become the kind of man who processes his emotions maturely and shares his inner world from a place of strength?" The answer to that question changed everything for Marcus, and it can change everything for you. Marcus began working with a professional therapist, not his girlfriend, not his mother, not his friends, but someone whose actual job was to help him process his emotions and develop emotional maturity. He started journaling, meditating, exercising regularly, and building what I call emotional sovereignty, the ability to feel deeply while remaining self-contained and self-directed. Most importantly, Marcus began to understand that attraction is not maintained by being needed, but by being wanted. He learned that women are attracted to men who have their emotional house in order, men who can be trusted to handle life's challenges without falling apart, men who can offer strength and stability rather than requiring it. When Marcus met Isabella 6 months later, his entire approach was different. Instead of immediately opening up about every fear and insecurity, he focused on being genuinely curious about her world, her thoughts, her dreams, her challenges. Instead of seeking her advice for every difficult decision, he handled his problems like an adult and shared his victories and insights from a place of completion. The difference was remarkable. Isabella found herself drawn not to Marcus's neediness, but to his self-possession. She was attracted not to his emotional dependency, but to his emotional maturity. She wanted to be with him not because he needed her to function, but because he was already functioning beautifully and chose to include her in his well-ordered life. This is the natural order of attraction, my friend. This is how masculine and feminine energies create the dynamic tension that sustains desire, respect, and deep love over time. But let me be clear about what I'm not saying. I am not advocating for emotional suppression. I am not suggesting that you become cold, distant, or emotionally unavailable. What I am teaching you is the difference between emotional maturity and emotional dumping, between vulnerability and neediness, between sharing your inner world and making your partner responsible for managing it. A mature man feels his emotions fully. He processes them effectively. He seeks appropriate help when needed, from professionals, mentors, or trusted friends who have the skills and boundaries to provide genuine support. And then, from that place of emotional completion, he chooses what to share with his partner and how to share it. When a mature man faces a difficult day, he doesn't immediately call his partner to dump his stress and seek comfort. He processes the stress, learns from the difficulty, takes whatever action is appropriate, and then, if he chooses, he shares the experience from a place of strength, perhaps even with lessons learned or insights gained. When a mature man has fears about the future, he doesn't burden his partner with endless anxious conversations seeking reassurance. He faces his fears directly, takes action to address what can be controlled, accepts what cannot be changed, and then, if appropriate, shares his thoughts from a place of self-awareness rather than seeking rescue. This is what women mean when they say they want a man who is emotionally intelligent. They don't want a man who dumps every emotion on them. They want a man who understands his emotions, processes them maturely, and shares his inner world from a place of choice rather than compulsion. The time has come for you to understand that your emotional well-being is your responsibility and yours alone. Your partner is not your therapist, your mother, or your emotional caretaker. She is your equal, your companion, someone who deserves to be with a man who has his emotional house in order and can contribute to her life rather than drain from it. This transformation begins in your mind with the thoughts you choose to think and the beliefs you choose to hold. Instead of believing that sharing every emotional struggle creates intimacy, choose to believe that emotional self-sufficiency creates attraction. Instead of believing that your partner should help you process every difficult emotion, choose to believe that processing your emotions maturely is one of your fundamental responsibilities as a man. Instead of believing that neediness is vulnerability, choose to believe that strength is the foundation of all genuine connection. Instead of believing that dumping your problems creates closeness, choose to believe that bringing your best self to the relationship creates the kind of love that lasts. Your subconscious mind will accept these new beliefs and begin to guide you toward behaviors that reflect emotional maturity rather than emotional dependency. You will find yourself naturally becoming more self-contained, more self-directed, more attractive to the feminine energy that you desire. But this transformation requires commitment, my friend. It requires the willingness to face uncomfortable truths about your behavior and make real changes rather than simply talking about change. It requires the courage to take full responsibility for your emotional well-being instead of expecting others to share that burden. Most importantly, it requires understanding that becoming emotionally mature is not just about preserving your romantic relationships. It is about becoming the man you were meant to be. It is about developing the inner strength, self-reliance, and emotional sovereignty that will serve you in every area of your life. As Marcus discovered, and as you will discover, when you stop treating your partner as your therapist and start treating her as your equal, everything changes. The dynamic of neediness and resentment transforms into a dynamic of mutual respect and genuine desire. The relationship becomes a source of joy and growth rather than a burden and obligation. The woman in your life begins to see you not as someone she must care for, but as someone she chooses to be with because you add extraordinary value to her already fulfilling existence. She begins to look at you with desire rather than exhaustion, anticipation rather than dread, respect rather than pity. This is what you want, is it not? This is the kind of relationship that creates lasting happiness, deep fulfillment, and the kind of love that grows stronger with each passing year rather than weaker. The path forward is clear, though it is not easy. You must commit to doing the inner work of emotional maturity. You must take full responsibility for your emotional well-being. You must learn to process your emotions like an adult rather than expecting your partner to do it for you. You must understand that authentic strength is not the absence of emotion, but the mature handling of emotion. You must recognize that true vulnerability comes from a place of choice and strength, not from a place of neediness and desperation. And you must never forget that she is not your therapist, fool. She is a woman who deserves to be with a man who has his emotional house in order, who can contribute to her life rather than drain from it, who can be trusted to handle life's challenges without falling apart. The time for emotional dumping is over. The time for treating your partner as your unpaid therapist has passed. The The time for emotional maturity, for genuine strength, for authentic masculine energy has arrived. As I have taught throughout my career, you become what you think about most of the time. If you think about yourself as someone who needs to be emotionally rescued, you will behave in ways that drive away the very people you want to attract. If you think about yourself as someone who is emotionally self-sufficient and mature, you will naturally behave in ways that create attraction, respect, and lasting love. The choice is yours, my friend. You can continue down the path of emotional dependency, watching relationships crumble under the weight of your neediness, wondering why women keep pulling away from you, or you can choose the path of emotional maturity, developing the inner strength and self-reliance that creates the kind of magnetic presence women cannot resist. Remember the words that must guide your transformation. The starting point of all achievement is desire, but it must be definite desire, backed by a burning faith and expressed through persistent action. Your desire must be definite. To become an emotionally mature man who takes full responsibility for his inner world, your faith must be burning, absolute certainty that you can develop the emotional sovereignty that creates lasting attraction. Your action must be persistent, daily commitment to processing your emotions maturely rather than dumping them on others. This is your moment, my friend. This is your opportunity to transform not just your relationships, but your entire approach to being a man in this world. The woman you want to attract is out there, but she is looking for a man who has his emotional house in order, not a grown child who needs mothering. Rise to meet her as an equal. Show up as someone who adds value rather than creates burden. Become the kind of man who is chosen not because he is needed, but because he is wanted by someone who is already complete. Write "I will be better now" in the comments if you're ready to stop being her unpaid therapy project and start being the man she actually wants to be with. The time for change is not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready. The time for change is now, in this very moment, with the very next choice you make about how you will handle your emotional world. Your future self, the man who has mastered emotional maturity, is waiting for you to take the first step. Take it now.